Hi guys, welcome back to The Contented Plant. Today we are going to repot some of my plants that are in desperate need of attention. I have a few here. The summer growing season has kind of caught me off guard, and I definitely have some that need to be repotted. So we're going to do that together and talk a little bit about the signs that your plant might be giving you that it's time to give it a pot that's the next size up. So let's get started. So today we're going to repot 3 of my plant babies here, and I chose these 3 to do on camera because they all have different signs that they're giving me that they need to be repotted. So we're going to go over that together. The first one is my Pothos N Joy. This one I've had in the pot for about a year and a half now. And usually the rule of thumb is 1 to 2 years, depending on how fast or slow growing your plant is. This one kind of grows at a medium pace, but I have noticed these last couple months that it has significantly slowed down the rate of its growth, which I think has to do with it being in this pot for too long. It's just too small for it. So for this one, I would say the biggest sign I have is it's slowed the growth way down, and that's not normal for this plant. I've had this plant a couple years and it definitely grows very quickly all the time. So the slow growth rate is telling me it needs to be repotted. It's really hard to tell if there's roots coming out because the drainage hole is kind of small on this one. So I'm going to take that slow growth rate as a good sign it needs to be repotted. This is my Philodendron Micans, which it has grown quite a bit over the summer. However, the poor thing is in this teeny tiny little nursery pot and it doesn't have a whole lot of soil in there. I can see roots that are starting to come out of the bottom. There's actually roots that are starting to come out of the top. And it has started to yellow a few leaves. You can see this one right here does not look very good. So I think this one could really use a new pot and a soil refresh. So we're gonna go ahead and do the Philodendron Micans. If you guys follow my channel, you actually watched me do a video on this one where I put it in a bigger pot. It wasn't doing very well, and now it is doing quite a bit better. I have it on this pole. It's got lots of new growth coming out of the top here. It had spider mites that we took care of, and now it needs to be repotted. You can see it has roots just growing all over the place in and out of this pot. So we're gonna go ahead and up the pot size. I also went a little bit heavy on the perlite and orchid bark as opposed to the potting mix in this particular plant pot. So it's drying out very, very quickly and it's not able to hold much water at all, which is another reason I want to repot it. So really quickly, let's go over the most common signs that you're gonna see that your plant needs to be repotted. Number 1, I would say, is the growth is slow. Number 2, you have roots that are starting to come out of the bottom of the pot. Number 3, sometimes it's roots coming out of the top of the pot, or the plant is actually pushing itself up out of the pot because of excess root growth. Number 4, sometimes your plant can become really top heavy because it has way too much weight on the top for a small pot and it will topple over easily. Number 5 would be your plant is drying out very, very quickly. And oftentimes I will see that, like my Marble Queen Pothos back here, I'm running on a wire's edge with that pot. I need to go up in size. I just don't have one on hand right now. But I do notice that it's drying out quite quickly. It's drying out. I need to water it a couple times a week right now to keep it happy. So for that one, that tells me that it is time to repot that plant as well. So those are the most common things to see when your plant needs to be repotted. The other thing you can keep in mind is sometimes if it's been in a pot for too long, usually 1 to 2 years, it's a good idea to go ahead and take it out, give it a soil refresh, and a pot a little bit bigger. So when we're talking about the pot size here, you only ever want to go up an inch or 2 more than the previous pot size. So for this Philodendron Golden Goddess here, you can see here's its pot, and this is the pot that I'm gonna put it into. And it's only about an inch bigger in circumference, which is going to keep this plant nice and happy. If you go up too big of a pot size, A lot of times it will create too much soil around those roots and they can hold on to water and rot your plant very quickly. You do not want excess moisture building up because your pot is too big. For all of these plants, I'm going to use the same mixture for my soil, which is the one I like to use. It's my most common, which is about 60% potting mix, 20% perlite, 20% orchid bark. Okay, so this is the little Pothos N Joy. It has a little water plug on the bottom here. Let me see if I can get that out without hurting any of the roots. Okay. So you can see it's not too bad. I actually thought it would be a little bit worse, but it does have quite a fair amount of roots that are kind of circling around the bottom there. And you can see it's kind of held together in that pot shape. So those roots are kind of growing and they're not able to breathe very well at the moment. So we are going to go ahead and gently loosen some of that soil around there. So you can see it's got quite a bit of very long roots that were kind of tangled around that are going to want a bigger pot to kind of spread out in. And I think that's going to help this plant a lot. If you guys have been watching my channel a while, this is one that I actually propagated when it was just teeny tiny little baby cuttings, and it's grown into this beautiful plant, which is one of my favorite plants. Okay, so this is my Pothos N Joy all repotted. I put it in this really adorable little plant stand, which I think is so cute. It looks really, really nice. It definitely needed a soil refresh. That soil just did not look very good. It looked like it was pretty old, musty, not a lot of life left in it. So that's another great reason to repot your plants if the soil is just kind of getting old and icky and there's not a lot of food quality left in that soil. So the next one I'm going to repot is my really pretty little Philodendron Micans. And you can see that one was also getting quite root bound. On top of that, there's just not a lot of soil that was sitting in that nursery pot. So definitely needs a refresh on that soil mixture. I just used the same one for the Philodendron Micans, which is my potting mix, some orchid bark and perlite. I like to use a peat-based potting mix because it just helps keep that soil nice and light and quick draining. So for this guy, I have to take the stake out as well and repot it with the bamboo stake. Otherwise, you can see it is just a very tippy plant. So you can see this plant has a great root structure on it. It definitely was needing to be repotted into a bigger pot with a lot more soil mixed in. All right, I have to add more soil in, but I have it sitting up on its stake, very, very loosely attached here. Okay, so I have all three in their new pots here, and then I just go ahead and give them a nice bit of water just to help that new soil kind of fill in around the roots. That helps prevent any air pockets. So here they are in their new pots. I think they all look great. They're going to do really well with that refreshed soil and those bigger pots. So my top tips for repotting your plants are choose a pot that's about 1 to 2 inches larger than your pot. Kind of gauge that depending on how fast growing your plant is. I would choose a quick draining soil mixture always. Make sure you research what kind of plant you have, whether it's a succulent, an aroid, something that might need a really quick draining soil or one that can just use a slower draining soil. Make sure that you always have your plant in a pot with a drainage hole. That just really helps avoid root rot, which nobody wants to deal with. I hope this helped you guys out. Please let me know if you have any questions down below and I will do my best to answer them for you. Thank you so much for stopping by The Contented Plant. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.